So a bit of progress on the new shop. I just start from the door you come into, with what you can see. These are the welding curtains. They protect against ultraviolet radiation, arc flash, all those very, very bad things that are very, very present here. This is the roughly currently about 800-pound welding table, 3/8 steel top. Everything on it's 3/8 steel angle. Sheet metal bottom is not 3/8 obviously. Got the number 6 record vise with a swivel base. I actually have 2 more of these I gotta figure out what to do with. The new shop saw, which is also a chop saw, is the Evolution saw. It's basically just a low speed, high torque, cold cutting metal saw, but it's in the frame of a miter saw, so it'll do wood, plastic, everything. I have a very expensive Droid blade on it that apparently you can't get in Canada, so I had to special order it from an American seller. But it's proven itself to be very worth it. When we originally got the shop, it did not have this wall here. I put this up. It's got the sheet metal skin because it's the welding area. The reason for the ladder on table is, 1, to annoy workplace safety people everywhere. Secondly, it is to work on the fume extractor. This is an Ameristar 5-ton air handler. I just got it wired up today. Was it red, green, red, or red, red, green? Actually, it was just red and green. For medium speed, which makes this a high volume, low suction welding fume extractor. I'm currently looking for HEPA filters to turn this into a fume filter. The difference between a fume extractor and a fume filter is, where in my case, I have the heat pumps, the ductless system that creates the heat. This sucks out all the air and dumps it out the chimney. Now the issue with that is that it also takes the heat out. And then if it's a filter, it does not dump it out the chimney. Rather, it dumps it probably on that end, and then the air circulates cleaned. When I get the correct filters, I'll be converting it to a fume filter, obviously, but for now I just need it to work, so it's going to be a fume extractor. And then what I still have to do to this is, I got the wiring done today. Finally found the correct schematic to put it on medium. So I'm going to close it off, mount a flange here, close off the bottom. Now I have to build some rails to go here. For the filters, those will be a 20 by 20 by 1. It's a very common, inexpensive filter. That's just to keep the dust out for now. So the conduit's going to come down this way to a range hood that acts as an intake, because it also has lights, and you know, they'll probably put some LEDs and that stuff. So I have fabricated the welding cart. I should have left my phone up here. The welding cart I fabricated from a not PetSmart shopping cart. I don't know what else to call it. Something more legal, maybe. So anyways, the underside of the welding table acts as additional storage, because storage, even though it's a 30 by 30 space, is very limited. You're gonna have to be very smart about it. So all the pink walls you see are going to be changed out and replaced, but that's when everything thaws and we can take down the old rotten walls. This wall was replaced. That back wall's new. This metal wall was very easy to make, actually. The jack post took all the weight off, so there wasn't really anything sketchy about it. One thing I did that isn't very evident is all the joints are braced with steel. And the central beam is 3-ply 3x8. This was rough milled. I don't actually know where you would get a 3x8 beam, so the section I replaced, I just did 2x10s and cut them down to 8, because they were cheaper, and money is kind of, kind of difficult when you're working in the workshop to make money, but you're not actually working and making money. So, yeah. Well, let's see. I relaminated the beam, so that's half-inch threaded rod, because there's no kill like overkill, and nothing ever broke for being too strong. The fume extractor is controlled by this dongle, for lack of a better term. That was my flashlight. And this is a explosion-proof housing, wet location, all that good stuff. This is a 30 amp motor controller, so it's kind of overkill, but again, no kill like overkill. I don't actually want to turn it on because I haven't found a way to bypass the 90-second time delay on the shutoff, but I'm just going to hit the breaker to close it. So, breaker on. Oh, and to stow it, it just pulls down by this slack. So, fume extractor on. And the time delay bypassed. The wiring is all done isometrically, very OCD, like a circuit board. The reason these are coiled up is because they're going to go on that wall. Once that's replaced, so all the green stuff, including the front walls, are going to be replaced. I'm surprised I haven't broken my flashlight with the amount of times I dropped it. Oh. Pro tip, cut a hole in your welding table and put a bucket for all the metal shavings. It's a lot easier than everything else. So, slightly forward, I actually have fire extinguishers and stuff now. Why did I put a dead MAME? I don't know. It wasn't dead when I put it up. LED everywhere. This is the welder disconnect. So that if Resident Evil has taught us anything, it's fuses get you killed. So, get the extra fuses, even though nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that you can just stick a bolt in there to bypass the fuse. I like to keep it off when the welder isn't being used, because the prongs for the welder plug are not sealed off. So, in case anything metallic gets jabbed in there, I'd rather not have 2 live 120 lines just, ready to be jabbed, and other innuendos. So, it's a very satisfying disconnect. The reason I'm using these improperly labeled light switches is because they're metal, so they're obviously better than the plastic ones because they won't shatter, and 2, they are only $1 each versus $5 each for the stainless, so I'm pretty happy with it. This copper's going on the electronics bench at some point. This is the racking out of an old service van. This you see in like offices and stuff. Got tools in here like wire brushes, die grinder bits, kind of consumables. Welding electrodes, good old fire bricks for soldering on, abrasives, grinder disc parts, welding stuff, helmets, gas cylinders, tool chests that nobody but me is allowed to touch. So, for example, if we're having an armor party, they take from these bins because these are kind of not quite disposable, but I don't really care if they get broken or messed up. I don't expect everybody to be proficient with all the tools in here, so I'd rather they learn with these and break them versus breaking like Snap-on stuff or Westwood or things that like get you murdered over. So. Almost enough vice grips. Some dentistry tools. That's just garbage, ignore that. This is the bracket for the fume extractor. So the way this is going to work is the fume extractor over here This is a range hood, but the 12-inch flex duct will connect to this, and then it'll have a snout that goes down to the work area. And the reason why the bracket is more complex than it has to be is because I still want this to be able to be folded upwards for more room. So for example, if we're working on something tall, I'm going to add some square stock, larger diameter than this, and pins so that these are removable as well. It's probably going to only go back to about here, but I still rather have the option and do the extra work to make this versus the alternative. This is just a simple, it's basically a hinge, where this would be the pin of the hinge, and then this is the body of it. It's got these pieces of angle welded on that hold it down. This will be mounted with 1/2-inch lag screws to the 3-ply beam. Moving onward, there is the workbenches. They're made of pressure-treated 4x4, lag screws and brackets everywhere, because again, overkill. Toolboxes, still got to organize these, take out the snap-on proto stuff and leave the Mastercraft and stuff, just so that people who might break the tools don't break the expensive ones. Parts organizers, these were my dad's, but now they're in here because it's a lot cheaper to buy some shelf racks versus $250 a month for a storage unit, and we can actually use them. So these are mostly machining things, pins, machining screws, stuff that looks nice on blasters, for example. Pro tip, if you have black oxide fasteners or impact sockets, the easiest way to keep them from rusting, so for example mine are in Droids, you just spray some WD-40 in there. WD-40 stands for water displacement, so obviously it's going to keep them from accumulating moisture. For example, before this was heated, it would be about -30, and we had a furnace, and it's very bad times. It was like the Russian food shortages and, you know, old Soviet stuff. That was basically what it was like in here, but with heat. So, you know, for example, just be trying to wire something up and the wire would keep cracking and breaking off because it was so cold. Now the reason why, okay, so under here I have the illuminated power bars. The reason I don't have them up here is because I don't want to be cutting through the cords of tools, which was a big issue in the old shop. So they're a little more convenient under here so you can see what you're getting. And the reason why this side does not have power is because this is one of the green walls, and it's also very rotten, so it's going to be replaced in the summer in maybe a couple months. It's probably going to be like $700 of lumber, including the plywood and the vapor barrier and the siding. So for now it's not essential, it still works fine as it is for the next few months. Let's see, flammables, strippers, other chemicals, more flammables, the do not touch box, saw blades, the do not touch box hook to enforce the rule. Over here we have the 8-inch record vise made in England. To anybody who's going to be working in here, don't break this or I'll break your legs. I inherited it from my grandfather, and made in England record are very, very expensive. So don't break it or I'll break you. Here we have a pile of junk that I had to move out of the way to do another video on the car. That isn't typically in here, but So now there's an English wheel, which we did not have before. Still have the anvil. I intend on replacing the top by having it milled flat and then welding a new top on. Say maybe 4130 tool steel, but I just don't have the facilities required to mill the top down and heat treat a 176-pound block of iron to weld onto it, but I just use the railroad welding rods. So the English wheel, the stand I made That is actually one chunk of I-beam. I added the gussets and these kind of stabilizer scraps on the side. 3 or 4 inch, I don't remember, angle. This is all stick welded with 7018 Excalibur Lincoln rods. The English wheel itself, all this blue stuff, and this is just a cheap Chinese English wheel. You can get the exact same thing from Harbor Freight, Princess Auto, Grizzly Industrial probably. Grizzly used to be really good, but now they kind of got cheap. So, before this is used, it needs to be dusted off, so don't push the wheels together. Otherwise, you will embed the dust in abrasive particles, because there's a lot of that in here, into the surface of the wheel, and then it won't leave a nice clean pattern. And the English wheel is used for both shaping and planishing, and if it's full of crap, then it will not really be any good for planishing unless you want to resurface it like you're sanding a clear coat. So that was just kind of messing around with the English wheel one day, maybe half an hour or 45 minutes of work. This is no hammering, just the English wheel. This is the flex duct for the fume extractor. I'll be installing that later. The other tool chest is the metalworking stuff. Hammers. There's maybe 6 or 7 hammers unassembled in here. Measuring and layout stuff. The good shears and nobody's allowed to touch. There are recruit shears over there. Under here I have metal forms. Part of the reason for having these very heavy metal forms under here is, one, to stabilize the weight of all the hammers. Well, not that you can really see it, but to stabilize the weight of the hammers. And 2, it's kind of the best spot that I've found for them, so they'll stay there. This is the dishing stump. It is birch. It's about the perfect height for me to work while sitting. Some shorter people can maybe stand, I don't know. That is also a birch stump, but it was for splitting. I was going to use it for dishing, but I like this one more because of the height. I still need to put some banding around it so it doesn't split. The bench grinder and polisher stand is again I-beam and angle, welded once again with 7018 Excalibur rods. These are pretty well good to go. I still need to put the plug on the polisher. It's controlled with a motor control interrupter, but for safety reasons I'm waiting on having a 240 volt serger pedal arrive, all die cast. It's from England, so it'll be a little tricky to incorporate it finding the right metric fasteners and crap to get into it, but it shouldn't be that big of an issue. But I also have a polycarbonate lathe shield that'll be a shield for the polishing wheel, just so it's not throwing crap onto the English wheel and the tool table and everywhere, really. That fire extinguisher is just a stand-in. It's not the correct size, but I'd rather have a fire extinguisher than none. I'm going to add some more nails up here for helmets and everything. This side is mostly storage, so we got the fasteners here, commissions over here, greeblies, parts, Nerf guns, electrical up here, shells, mortar parts, Chase's boots for 3 years or something now. Come get your shit, Chase. The Croissant of Doom. More shells. The 20mm cut down to 40mm casings. Over here we have the metal stock. On the top it's hinges and antennas, then it's stainless steel, then it is steel flat bar stuff. Good for banding. Some of it's also good on ear caps. For example, this stuff. Then we have heavy steel stock. So yeah, it's probably not gonna break. And aluminum. Aluminum is kind of mixed, but it's sorted by round stock, extrusions, and then flat bar. Over here we have smaller stuff. This is heavy steel scraps, but still usable stuff. So for example, for metal forms, I'll take from this, or riveting forms, all that kind of stuff. Under here we also have some helmet parts, all the metal belting, this aluminum mat case for greeblies, all that good stuff. Compressed gas cylinder storage, I should probably mark off with a warning thing. Nitrogen, acetylene, argon, stainless. Yeah, for the most part. Over here it's mostly my dad's refrigeration supplies, a bit of old automotive. Like I said, I kind of had to push everything forward to make a video for a YouTube channel. Won a contest asking about different car mods around the world, so I just got done with that video. This week it's supposed to be like +9, so I'll be moving the car out probably tomorrow. I'm not going to work with it in here because it's white and literal iron particles in the air, so you just get full of rust, and it's got a little bit of rust contamination on the paint, but oh so little that it doesn't show. Plus it's white, so when it's outside you can't even tell when it's absolutely filthy like it is now. So fasteners, stainless steel, miscellaneous, rivets, miscellaneous hardware, like for example clamps, BNC connectors, fuses, rocket parts. Down here it's all the steel stuff, about a dozen or so vacuum pumps, sold tools, refrigerant. The sheet metal cart, it's built onto a mover's dolly. It's essentially, the shape of it is basically just an oversized mouse droid, so we call it the moose droid. I've got a couple more of these fans. I use the, I guess you could call them the vanes off of it as pauldrons, or well, it could be a lot of different parts, but I got a few more of those. A ladder rack made from a bicycle rack. It's probably not going to break. Up here I've got some miscellaneous stuff. These bins we use at conventions as kind of booth props. They are film reel canisters, so they're pretty cool. Roofing stuff, refrigeration line sets, conduit, piping greeblies, steel greeblies, Eric Blakemore's helmet, Tanner's stuff, Adam James Kirk Foster's stuff, Craig's stuff. No, I haven't forgotten about you, Craig. Helmet parts. All kinds of greeblies. Event stuff. Project boxes. You know, all that good stuff. The Nerf stuff I don't really use anymore, but a good basis to modify off of. And yeah, that's basically it. So I plan on opening back up on Monday. The stuff will all be organized better. Just the stuff that I got piled up right here was originally against the door. What I'm probably going to do is get a 4x4, like 4 foot by 4 foot table right here as like just a work table for when we're doing armor parties. So I'll still keep like the helmet painting stand in here. I'll probably put in a second set of ductwork for the fume extractor just for a painting area. What else? Yeah, it's a pretty good space for armor parties because, say we have like 6 people in here, there's enough room that for example, 3 people could work in this area, not when it's got shit all over it, but when it's cleared off, like I said, I got to put things away that I had out while I was working on the fume extractor. So yeah, it's 30 by 30 with the walls that were built more inwards and all the equipment. It's more like a 10-foot by 25-foot walking area, but it's still plenty useful. So yeah.